to the Congressional Integrity Project. Thank you for joining us. We're here today to talk about James Comer's disgraceful attack on Beau Biden and the sad and disturbing saga of Jim Jordan's fake whistleblowers. I'm joined here today by Naveed Shah, an Army veteran and a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Naveed is the political director of Common Defense, the nation's largest grassroots organization of U.S. military veterans with over 300,000 members. We're also joined by Beau, who served 20 years in the Navy, including serving on board the USS O'Brien and the USS Carl Vinson, and serving as a Navy recruiter. She received numerous service and meritorious medals and awards throughout her military career, and Camille is the Eastern Regional Organizer for Common Defense. We're also joined by Dana Gold, the Senior Counsel and Director of Education at the Government Accountability Project, and the Director of its Democracy Protection Initiative. The Nonpartisan Government Accountability Project is the nation's leading whistleblower protection and advocacy organization. Their mission is to protect the public interest by promoting government and corporate accountability. Before turning this over to Naveed, I want to make some brief introductory remarks. I mentioned we're here today to talk about another very bad week for the MAGA-led so-called investigations in the House of Representatives, and particularly for Jim Comer and Jim Jordan. By now, it should be clear to everyone that Comer and Jordan lack all credibility and are incapable of any legitimate oversight. Even their political stunts are failing. All they care about is damaging President Biden and Democrats so they can further their MAGA agenda. But it seems that so far, the more they try, the more they fail. Just when you think they can't go any lower, they do. Just when you think they can't undermine their credibility any further, they manage to do so. And there always appears to be room for another clown car on the MAGA train. In the last few days, Jim Comer defamed and attacked without any evidence President Biden's deceased son, Major Beau Biden, an Army veteran who served in Iraq and whose brain cancer may have been caused by exposure to open-air burn prints while he was on active duty. And when members of his own party refused to defend him, Jim Comer refused to apologize. And then he took a page out of Donald Trump's playbook and began hurling playground insults against those who criticized him. And last night, multiple stories broke exposing Jim Jordan's claims that whistleblowers had come forward with important evidence that those claims were a fraud. Actually, worse than a fraud. It turns out that none of the individuals are actually whistleblowers. They had no actual knowledge of wrongdoing. They received cash payments from top people in Trump's orbit. And they indicated their support of violence and support for the attack on our country on January 6th. Even Jim Jordan's Republican allies said to the New York Times, it was amateur hour, and that airing this stuff on live television would make us look like morons. This week, once again, shows the truth about the MAGA-controlled House of Representatives. They have no credibility or capability to conduct legitimate oversight. They condone violence. They condone the attack on our country on January 6th, and they condone election deniers. Instead of caring about the real issues Americans care about, they're interested in political stunts to damage the president and push an extreme MAGA agenda. And with that, let me turn the call over to Naveed.
Thanks so much, Leslie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm the political director of Common Defense and an Army veteran. We live here in the DC area. You know, I served in Iraq from 2009 until 2010, around the same time as Beau Biden. I joined the military after 9/11 to serve my country, and many of my fellow soldiers that I served with joined the military in that time of war because we felt it was the right thing to do. We felt that our country was under attack, and it was our duty as Americans to serve. We knew the risks of serving. We knew that we would have to brave roadside bombs and snipers and worse. What we did not know about were the risk of toxic exposure. In Iraq, I was stationed at Joint Base Balad, which is had one of the largest open air burn pits in the DoD. While there hasn't been a direct correlation drawn between Beau Biden's untimely death in 2015 from brain cancer, it's not hard to see how that could have been a cause. These toxic exposures that military members, were serving next to, could cause these kinds of debilitating and deadly illnesses. And that's one of the reasons why President Biden was so inspired and so strongly advocated for the passage of the PACT Act last year. The PACT Act provided healthcare for the 3.5 million veterans who have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere in the global war on terror over the past 20 years. Representative Jim Comer voted against the PACT Act. So when you look at his remarks about Beau Biden, it's not hard to see where his disrespect and denigration of his service comes from. He may pay lip service to veterans, as unfortunately many of our elected officials do, but when it comes down to it, he doesn't actually support or respect us, and that is unconscionable for me as a veteran and as a leader of a grassroots movement. I know many of our members have already spoken up about this issue as well, that it cannot stand for this person who is not only an elected official, but is a senior member of his party, serves on a very important committee as chairman. Does he have the right judgment that we need of a leader like that? That's a question that I have now. You know, we started out just asking for him to recognize what he said was wrong and apologize. But at this point, you know, his response has only digging his hole deeper and really making me question whether or not he has the fortitude required for somebody to serve in a position of oversight in our government. To Common Defense's 350,000 members and to myself personally, you know, Major Beau Biden served honorably and with distinction. General Odierno, I believe, spoke at his funeral, just speaking to how you know, wonderful his service was to our country. So to hear Representative Comer come back and say that draw any sort of disparagement on Major Biden's service or his record is disgusting. And to speak to the issue that he brought up for a moment, Beau Biden handled himself like, you know, perfectly, as you would want any elected official to in that situation. He heard about wrongdoing, he recused himself from the process and brought in a special prosecutor to investigate those claims. And the special prosecutor did their investigation and followed the law, you know, thoroughly. There's no question that there was no impropriety by Beau Biden, just like when he served in the Army, just like when he served as the Delaware Attorney General. He did not do anything wrong. And so to cast any doubt on him and his legacy as a veteran now is absolutely the wrong way to handle yourself. So Representative Comer, I hope if he's watching or hears about this, you know, we're respectfully demanding that he apologize on behalf of all of our veterans and military members. And we're asking Speaker McCarthy to also take a look at who he has in his leadership team and whether or not they represent the best of what our country can, you know, best of our country. Because at the end of the day, for not only for our veterans and military members, but for his constituents, he needs to do the right thing.
Thank you, Naveed. Let me now hand this over to Camille.
Thank you, Leslie. Hi, my name is Camille Beau, and I joined the Navy to see the world and to gain a valuable life skills and to serve my country. So 9/11 happened a few days before I graduated boot camp. I served on board the Carl Vinson and the USS O'Brien and deployed multiple times to the Western Pacific in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I proudly enlisted and swore the oath quite a few times and served for 20 years. And I proudly served alongside of some of the best people who sacrificed a lot in the name of our country. This is why it pains me so much to hear a fellow service member, Beau Biden, being mocked the way Representative Comer did. Representative Comer used his position to exploit veterans and attacks Beau Biden when he is not even here to defend himself. When I heard about what Representative Comer said about Beau Biden, it motivated me to say something especially because he is talking about someone who was exposed to burn pits. In fact, this directly affects my family because my husband is currently still serving in the Navy and he was exposed to burn pits as well. Our service and sacrifice should matter, especially to people like Representative Comer that claims that he supports the troops. He does not. His comments are harmful and to the entire military community. Everyone who served, past, present, in the future, should know that our elected officials are using us as political pawns. Representative Comer should be ashamed of himself, and he should apologize for what he said. But I will go as far as to question whether he is the right person to be a leader and serve in an important committee such as this. So yes, he should apologize for what those comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for, so honestly explaining this to people. And as you said, you took the oath many times, and each of those times you then risked your life for the country. Congressman Comer took an oath to protect this Constitution. It would be nice if you truly lived up to that oath as well. Let me turn this over now to Dana Gold from the Government Accountability Project.
Hi, thanks all for joining. And I'm here to talk instead about something a little different, which is the reporting about discrediting the FBI agents who Representative Jordan has been relying on to launch the committee's weaponization inquiry into the weaponization of the FBI. So there's some really concerning reporting that came out. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dana Gold, which said I'm Senior Counsel and Director of our Democracy Protection Initiative at the Government Accountability Project. Government Accountability Project we're the leading whistleblower protection and advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we have been for nearly 50 years. And we've represented thousands of whistleblowers from both sides of the aisle during every administration, supporting them in exercising their rights to raise serious concerns about abuses of power and ensuring their disclosures make a difference. And we've led the development and enforcement of most of the whistleblower laws in the United States and many around the world. So I think it's really important to understand what a whistleblower is and what a whistleblower isn't from a legal perspective. We know that whistleblowers are the key to holding the powerful accountable, whether they be in the government or the private sector. We know throughout history they have been central to true oversight and providing the public with the truth, and eroding or ignoring whistleblower laws or politicizing whistleblowers has dangerous long-term consequences. So again, after decades of working with whistleblowers, we know what makes a whistleblower, and it's really important. And it's concerning when we see red flags when that moniker of what a whistleblower is used, it doesn't meet the legal standard and may be used inappropriately. So under the Whistleblower Protection Act, there are over 60 federal laws that protect whistleblowers. Under the Whistleblower Protection Act, which is what protects most federal employees and is mirrored with the law that protects FBI whistleblowers, whistleblowers are employees who disclose information they reasonably believe evidences violations of laws, rules, or regulations, abuses of authority, gross mismanagement, gross waste of funds, or a substantial and specific danger to public health and safety. It's a high standard what they have to blow the whistle on, and they have to have a reasonable belief that is objectively tested. It matters what they're blowing the whistle on. It has to rise to that level. It's not a policy dispute. It's not a disagreement. It's not having a difference of opinion. those don't rise to a level of what constitutes protected whistleblowing. You have to have verified information that shows objectively a reasonable belief in this degree of serious wrongdoing. That's why we protect whistleblowers, because their disclosures allow Congress to do its oversight work, for the executive branch to do its oversight work, to course correct, to use the laws to enforce, to enforce and protect all of us, and allow civil society and all of us as educated citizens to make decisions. It is the oxygen of democracy. That is why whistleblowers matter. We care about their information, and we care about the truth of their information. We also know that whistleblowers are not typically motivated to come forward for pure personal gain. And I think about the comment about taking the oath and how many whistleblowers we've represented, including FBI whistleblowers, who talk about the reason that they were able to speak up and needed to was because they took an oath to defend the Constitution. It was a duty that motivated them. They saw wrongdoing so serious they could not stay silent in the face of it. Being paid to blow the whistle is not something that is recognized in the federal law, let alone when payment comes from those with clear political motives. Credibility matters to veracity. So it's an important piece to think about when pay for play may be involved. This is why this current situation is so troubling. There's just serious red flags. We don't know. We've seen the reporting, though. There's serious red flags that the FBI agents' disclosures don't meet those standards that I described about having a reasonable belief that the information evidences the serious forms of misconduct that are codified in the law of what constitutes protected whistleblowing speech. And so if this committee launched this hearing based on disclosures that do not meet the standard for what constitutes that protected whistleblowing, it's a disservice to all legitimate whistleblowers who have come before and may come in the future. And worse, it weaponizes the recognized credibility and value of true whistleblowers. And it does so to spread disinformation via the congressional oversight process for political ends. It's a new low to weaponize this invaluable source of truth when we know that employees are usually at great risk speaking up to defend the public interest. So we are deeply concerned that what we're seeing is the deliberate undermining of truth and democracy by those who have been clear about a partisan agenda that use disinformation to foment violence and an attempt to overturn the 2020 election. The stakes could not be higher. So our democracy and our lives depend on the ability to speak truth to power. And whistleblowers, motivated by a sense of duty and an inability to stay silent, are our best vehicle to promote accountability and catalyze change. So we urge those in Congress to take their responsibility for oversight and accountability seriously, to follow the law, and to pass stronger legal protections for whistleblowers that they clearly acknowledge represent vehicles for accountability through the power of information. And so if they really cared about whistleblowers, they would be leading the charge rather than blocking efforts to pass the Whistleblower Protection Improvement Act that would strengthen protections for both FBI whistleblowers and all federal employees. They owe it to the whistleblowers who have come before, and we need it because we want to ensure that those other whistleblowers will continue to come forward in the future. We need them to. Thanks.
Thanks, Dana, for those remarks and for giving us all that perspective on the role that blowers play and the importance of the sanctity of keeping that institution respected, as it always has been, so that the people who come forward have the protection of the brand, in a sense, that keeps them safe, as well as allows them to stand up. So all of this, at least in my mind, shows that these investigations are not on the up and up, that these individuals don't have the credibility to lead them, and they're not really honest efforts at oversight. And with that, I'll ask my colleagues, ask Emma and Nicole to see if there are any questions from those on the phone, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Hi, yes, if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand in Zoom or put the questions in the chat. Hi, so we got one question in the chat. Now the Republicans have started to criticize these investigations. What do you think the next step should be?
If anybody wants to take that, since anyone on the spot, but Daniel, look like you may be nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the next step should be. We need more information. We need answers from the committee chair given to all members of the committee about the process. We should have an investigation actually into the context and the veracity of the disclosures and whether or not the process itself is being weaponized.
No, I think in some ways now, really, we need to investigate the investigators here for whether or not they're all credible. And this enterprise that Mr. Jordan has been really talking about for many, many months is a legitimate one. And we'll see if they rise to that to that need. Emma, any other questions?
Yes, so one more. What do you think this does to the credibility of the investigations with the whistleblowers and everything?
Well, I think we've somewhat tried to answer. It might be interesting if Naveed or Camille are willing to sort of talk about that a little bit from the standpoint of the 350,000 people that they represent across the country. We're about as patriotic a sample as we could ever find.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's a great question that what this is showing us and showing the American people is that these investigations are not valid, right? If there really were whistleblowers to speak to these issues, that would be a whole separate conversation. But this really, is clearly a partisan thing, and they are really not making themselves look good in doing this. And I think there is already a broad consensus amongst people that these investigations are not credible. And now that we know this for a fact, it's really becoming, apparent that they will do anything and everything to attack, the other side, whether or not there's any basis in fact. And when we see this, very similarly, why Representative Comer made these remarks about Beau Biden, because there's really nothing else there. So he's, it's easier for him to attack a dead veteran than to find any actual wrongdoing, because there isn't any.
It's a pretty low thing to do.
Can I actually respond also, which is only that, I think one of the dangers here is, one, it potentially chills other whistleblowers afraid of being politicized in coming forward. And I think it's so dangerous for Congress itself in terms of undermining the legitimacy of the institution, because there's plenty that this Congress can do to investigate the current administration based on legitimate whistleblowers. I mean, like, we represent a bunch of whistleblowers during the Biden administration. There's plenty to do. Nobody's clean hands. There's lots of need for accountability, but it needs to be legitimate, and it needs to be through a forum that respects the sanctity of what truth means and what it means for an individual of conscience to speak out and exercise and take great risk on behalf of all of us to promote legal compliance and to protect us against abuses of power and dangers and public health and safety problems. I mean, we need whistleblowers, and this is so dangerous in terms of the chilling effect, and again, to the legitimacy of the body, where there's plenty to investigate with legitimate whistleblowers who we need to continue to come forward. Accountability doesn't matter no matter who's in power, but it does matter when we think about the legitimacy and credibility of the source. It just deeply matters, and I think we need to investigate. I'm not saying I've only seen reporting. I don't know. The reporting is concerning. There are red flags based on our experience representing thousands of whistleblowers. To shed light that there's concern about the credibility issues. And it's why Congress needs to, meet the legal standard when it's using sources to do its oversight work, which is we depend on legitimate oversight of Congress.
Well, thank you. I think that's a kind of a conclusion of all of us, that this so far is not proven to be legitimate oversight. And that's their obligation. I want to thank Dana and Naveed and Camille and the work that their organizations do every day to keep America who we are. So thanks. Have a nice weekend,
for having
everybody.
us.
Thanks.
Thank you.